Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to my live. Thank you so much for joining. This is a take two, just so you know, it's like a take two of something I tried to do the other day and it didn't really work out. And it was technical difficulties, to say the least. We got sabotaged twice in trying to do this, but, um, you know, three times the charm. Can't keep a good bitch down, whatever. And so I'm excited to go live with you today. And I have a special guest, which whom I'll introduce in a minute. But I just wanted to send some love because I know that there's a lot going on these days. Uh, I'm here in the world and I'm trying to figure out the best way to engage with a lot of things that are happening, like socially and publicly in the news and in the world. And I decided to bring back this series called Pep Talks, which I used to do couple of years ago, and I did a lot during the pandemic. And we've had different versions of it over the years, but this one is going to be more about kind of about things that are just happening in either in current events or things that I want to talk about. And so I'm really excited for today's episode, which is the first one. I'm also really happy that we're streaming on multiple platforms. I think if it's successful, then we're streaming on multiple of our platforms. If not, then you watching a clip of this on somebody's page next week. Um, but if you're watching me on Instagram, and if you saw this on Instagram and if there's a glitch, because there was a glitch with Instagram the other day, I haven't been able to check. I will try to check sometime during the stream, but I'm running the technical aspect of this as well. If you're watching on Instagram and there's a problem with Instagram again, then please go over to my YouTube. And it's Peppermint 247 on all my platforms. You can go over to my YouTube and find me there. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch, then it should be fine. So if you're having a technical difficulty on one of the platforms, especially Instagram or Facebook, then just know that you can go over to Instagram or to Twitch and to YouTube, where this is also streaming live. That's it. So right now there's a lot of talk about LGBTQ issues, especially considering that there's several hundred, many 1,100,000 bills and policies, anti-LGBTQ bills and policies that are being introduced at a alarming record rate in the U.S. local legislatures around the country. And we're thinking that, if and or when people who are espousing these anti-LGBTQ policies get into further power, national, federal power, then they will no doubt implement the bans that we've seen in certain states around the country, down in certain parts of the country primarily, see those enacted and implemented on a federal and national level. And so that really brings up a huge conversation about trans access that trans people have to various things. Many of these anti-LGBTQ bills are in fact anti-trans bills and legislation that are limiting access to things like sports, healthcare, gender affirming care, bathroom access, and the whole nine. And so one of the things that comes up a lot is gender affirming care. And one of the points that I try to make is that, yes, gender affirming care is essential and can be life-saving for people who elect and opt to engage in it, especially for trans people. It can be life-saving for trans people, but trans people are not, in the wake of these bans, trans people are not the only people who engage in gender affirming care. Gender affirming care really is anything that you do, any type of treatment that you seek or undergo that helps you feel better in your own body. Gender affirming care is not just surgery or even cross-sex hormones, which it does include those things, but it also includes so many other things that are basically just allowing people to feel better about their bodies. Gender affirming care is birth control. Gender affirming care is Viagra. you know um and there's a whole host of things that can be viewed as gender affirming care. And in fact, the people who generally consume gender affirming care in our medical system, which is a for-profit medical system for everything, are cisgender people. And so, that really, I want to talk to some people. I knew I wanted to talk to some people who have just sort of a different take on gender and how we care for our bodies and how we move about the world in our bodies. And an interesting creator that I came across a really interesting video that was shared by Alliance Sphere on Instagram that had a man talking about trans men and gynecomastia. And I was like, okay, I've heard of gynecomastia. What is this? And before I bring him on, he's my guest. But before I bring him on, I want to share that video with you that I witnessed first. Here we go.
Only thing that lean is your bitch when I bend her over. Sipping Poland Spring in Arizona. Fuck a Coca-Cola. That's your Juliet? Oh, that's cool. I'm a Romeo her. You think you a demon till I G you like I'm Tomioka.
And here we have Stacey Fit. He goes by Stacey Fit on his Instagram and his social media. And here he is right now. Hi. Hello. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely fantastic. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. And so, I came across your content was shared by another creator, a trans man whom I know. And I was really sort of intrigued, and I was really interested because I was like, first of all, who's this person who's talking about trans men? Are they of trans experience themselves? If they're not, they better watch what comes out their mouth. And like, that was like where I was coming from. I was ready to be like, ho, ho, ho. And here I am sharing your video and sharing your content. And so before we go further into this conversation, can you introduce a little bit about yourself, just off the bat, so people can get to know you a little bit, and why you decided to post? Well, we'll get into that. Just talk to me a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. Let's save the best for last. Let's just start off real smooth and simple. It all began, I just have a passion for weightlifting. It's been a part of my entire life. As far as working out goes, it was always non-negotiable for me. And, part of the experience of working out for many of us, not for everyone, is in a general sense, often, an aesthetic appearance. We want to increase, our aesthetic appeal in one way or another. Again, not for everyone, but for many, myself included, above all. And, I developed gynecomastia in my 20s because of a lifestyle factor. And I quickly found out that this really affected my mental health. I felt a myriad of reactions because of this. I felt ashamed. I felt guilty. I was very embarrassed. And it got to a point where I got so good at hiding it from the world, I came to find out that I was actually hiding it from myself. And this began to really stand in the way of, my ability to have a total picture of self-love and self-compassion. And as I went on to, continue to work out through my entire 20s up until this very day, I realized that it affected me so profoundly. It really felt like the biggest hurdle for me to personally cross as far as, my own goals and hopes and dreams and aspirations. And aside from that background and that context, I'm just a guy in New Orleans, and I've got an iPhone, and I love going to the gym. And I just pretty much film, me doing my cardio and talking about my daily life. And at the same time, I've got gynecomastia. And so it was pretty challenging, but eventually I got to the point where I started to discuss gynecomastia as well, even though it was really hard to, because I was so embarrassed about it. But, I stood to gain so much self-acceptance and so much support from so many different communities just by talking about the thing that I had been suffering silently about for over a decade.
That's really interesting because I think gynecomastia is certainly something that I've heard a lot about. Can you explain, like, just for people, what the layperson's terms, like what gynecomastia is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in a nutshell, right off of the, most basic definition of it, gynecomastia is defined as the benign enlargement of breast tissue in males. So typically, as a rule of thumb, it's just like too much estrogen, but it is more complicated than that. But just for the layman, too much estrogen, some kind of imbalance. Something's going on because estrogen is acting as a growth hormone that stimulates the development of breast tissue in a male. So that's pretty much the most basic definition of it.
Okay. Yeah. And needless to say, because we live in a patriarchy and because we judge we use people's secondary sex characteristics, meaning the shape of their body, the height of their height, the sound of their voice, the size of their hands, whether they have an Adam's apple. Things like that are what we generally use when we're just looking with our eyes to decide male, female, how much of that they fit into, like what we take a quick snapshot, a checklist with our brain, even subconsciously, to categorize those people. Not only are they a man, or like, do they appear to be a man, but like, okay, that's a man, that's a tall man, that's a good looking man, that's an athletic man. We use everything we see with that one person, their height, their shape of their body, the way they move, all these different things, as a sign of a signal to tell us about who these people are. And so for a lot of guys, that's a really crucial like calling card. And so I guess if they have breast tissue that's overdeveloped and it doesn't look like what they would typically want a chest to look like, that's mostly muscle tissue, then I would imagine that it can make some guys feel a certain type of way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that plays into this side of the consequences of gynecomastia that's known as psychosocial. So there's so many psychosocial complications that arise with gynecomastia, and this is at first it seems pretty simple, but really this is where we get the deepest insight into like how exactly all this plays out for a man, and then it brings into question, what does it really mean? What does any of this really mean? So at a first glance, the cursory glance at the psychosocial impact that gynecomastia has on any person, honestly, is that it creates an emotional disconnect between the individual with gynecomastia and the world around them. They end up, they'll often have intimacy problems with a dating partner. I've spoken with gyno surgeons. Some cases are so severe that individuals, they might be married for 20, 30 years and they can't even take their shirt off in front of their wife or partner, spouse. And also it creates, as it goes on to distance, create emotional distance in the world around us, between the people in the world, the people in our lives. It begins to affect your self-esteem. It makes you insecure. It makes it harder for you to have a picture of self-compassion and self-love for yourself. And the main feeling is characterized by a sense of guilt and shame and embarrassment. And now this is like, well, why? Okay, so I just have like this presence of tissue on my chest. Why do I feel guilty about this? This has happened without my control. What's going on here? And what it is at the root of it all is that, at least in, one demographic, now this is not a universal experience, but in one demographic, specifically for cis males, at least at a given time, the fear is, even at a subconscious level, it is the fear of subordination and marginalization within a gender hierarchy. They think it's going to make them less than a man, make them subordinate to other men in this gender hierarchy. So men are, just because of the feminization of the chest, gets a little symbolic too. What do we tell men? Say it with your chest, proud chest. There's this symbolism going on here too. And so when you have the feminization of the chest in a man, at least for some demographic, it makes them guilty because they feel like less of a man. Now, to take it a step further, and I'll cut it off after this, I don't want to go wax philosophy for too long. It goes on to contest the man's masculinity, at least the cis male contests his masculinity and says, well, if I feel like my chest is feminizing my masculinity, my notion of masculinity, what exactly is my definition of masculinity? And that thought process in itself is really where my journey began. Feeling like, oh, am I less of a man? Will I feel marginalized towards other men? Am I going to be subordinate? But then I got deeper than that, and I'm like, there's no way that my masculinity depends on just this. There has to be something more. And that's really what the beginning of my personal journey is. And that's what, I hope many can, kind of get on that path to say, maybe my masculinity is about some other aspect of my identity than just what my chest looks like. But that's
What you're saying, I mean, honestly, what you described a few minutes ago about like the feeling, the sort of self-consciousness and about your body and it's changing and you're not able to present the way that you want. A lot of that sounds like the similar symptoms of or similar signs, I would say, of gender dysphoria, which that is a type of gender dysphoria, where all of these things are, I'm, I'm, if a man is saying, okay, I'm a man and I'm this, and I should have this body, but my chest is looking more like a woman's and I'm not feeling right in my body. That is gender dysphoria. I mean, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't diagnose anybody. But those are a lot of those are the feelings that people who experience gender dysphoria report having. And I can certainly speak for myself. That's what the hell I was. I was like, this ain't right, you know. Um, and it can send somebody into stress and depression. Obviously, people can seek medical care and attention and try to find some other ways. And what you decided to do was start making videos about it. So why did you start making videos about gyno?
Let me start here. Is I got to a point in my physical fitness journey where I was like, no, I'm not keeping this off the internet anymore. I'm in the best shape of my life. I want to put this on the internet. I'm ready. I want some likes and I want some follows. And it started off like that, and I think that at the root of it, it's kind of like probably most people's story. They kind of they hit the ground running. They're like, well, I want to like put my stuff on the internet. I want some likes and followers. And it starts off real simple and kind of primitive like that. But as I went on to do it more and more, and then I was like, well, I'm like doing ab checks, kind of similar to the pictures that I had sent you a few of, where I would pull up my shirt like this and keep the chest kind of hidden, and I would show the abs. So I was able to display some of my progress, but it wasn't full blown, picture, shirtless picture. It was just like, here's the ab check, but suddenly I had the shirt covering the gynecomastia. I would also do poses where I was like, well, look, I can show the arms, I can show my abs, but I've got this arm and it's concealing the gyno. As you can see, this is how it all began. So I got the gyno covered, and man, what a trip what a flash, a blast from the past, and no one was the wiser. And really what's going on in these pictures is so much deeper than just, oh, here's my ab check. I'm hiding something. And I was concealing a secret. And this secret that I was hiding by doing these poses, even though it looks like, oh, just a gym pic, nice abs. What I was doing was I was hiding a part of myself. And that in itself, that thing that I was hiding was holding me back from a true picture of self-compassion and self-love. And I had no idea how profoundly this had emotionally stunted me until I eventually started doing content. And after I soft launched it like this, like, hey, here's a pose. What I did was I used the power of language and the power of words. And those words were very simple and succinct. And that message was gyno posing tips, how to pose with pictures with gyno. And so that was a soft way to introduce it because I was still hiding it. And people were sort of like, hey, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean gyno? So now here we have full display, have completely come to terms with it, wearing it proudly. And as one gynosurgeon that I spoke with over a Zoom call one day, so grateful that he took an hour out of his day on a Friday afternoon to talk to me. What a privilege that was. He said, wow, I've never seen anything like this. And he's like, you're doing great. You've come to terms with it. He's like, that's a huge part of this. And you don't see it a whole lot, but you found a way to come to terms with it. And that's so important. And, one aspect, one facet of my content is to show people how I've come to terms with this, how it's radically changed my life, how it's radically improved my quality of life, and how much I've benefited from it. But also, I want other people to feel that too. And I get DMs, countless DMs every single day. And they're like, hey, the power of just seeing you say that is like, has put a smile on my face today. And that's the, so it started out, social media was like, oh, I want some likes and followers. And now just a single DM from someone saying, hey, like, thank you like this made my day better because seeing you have gyno made me feel better about my gyno. And that's all this is about. That is such a priceless benefit to have. And so I reach out to people as much as possible to say, thank you for sharing that with me, because that motivates me as well. And so this is just like, let me put that love back out there, and that love comes right back to me. And now the trans community has reached out to me too to say, hey, these tips help us too. And, you know, now here we are.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about, like, you know, that it's one thing for sure to give. I mean, it's miraculous. I think it's wonderful to be able to give. I don't want to say miraculous because that sets a really high bar. It should be par for the course. It should be very normal for
Yeah.
men to be able to talk about, for people to be able to talk about their bodies and how they feel, and what feels good and what doesn't, and what they've noticed and what they have in common with other people that they might be experiencing, and what's helped them. And, you know, you being able to do that, and other guys being able to sort of latch onto that and also share in that experience is great. And then the added bonus is that, again, since what you were describing sounds a lot like gender dysphoria, naturally, how you deal with it, how you treat it, how you address it, how you display it or uphold it, or even hide it, or whatever you're doing, how you work with it in your life also can be helpful to not only people with gyno, but also trans folks, and particularly trans masc folks who want to hide their breast tissue if that's what they want to do. And so you mentioned that some followers and users who are of trans experience reached out to you. So can you tell us about the first time somebody reached out to you who's trans, and what they said? Like that, what is that? Were you like expecting trans folks to be like, yeah, me too? Or were you like, wait, hold up. What was that like?
Yeah, there's so many different levels, you know. So here I am. I'm doing, I'm doing gyno content and all this stuff, and I'm going through I'm in my own little world, going through my own little journey. And some people are like, "What is this guy even doing? Why are you talking about man boobs so much?" Like, and then some people are like being mean to me, and then some people are being like, "Hey, this is pretty cool." And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this whole other community, a trans man says to me, "Hey, this oddly enough is like unusually helpful for me as well as a trans man." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He was like, yeah, this is like oddly validating. He was like, I have, it was new to him as well. And he was just like, yeah, this helps me too. And I was like, thank you for sharing that with me. This is like an unexpected addition to my, 2022 bingo card at the time. And so I made I made a video, and I was like, hey, thank you so much for telling me that. Like, I'm really grateful to have helped in, to use your own words, some oddly validating way. And and then the comments were rolling. People were like, "Hey, this is cool." They were like, "You don't usually see gym bros, like especially cis guys, like kind of supporting this." Unfortunately, it's a very dark, dismal niche where plenty of people like literally become rich. They make so much hateful content, totally transphobic content, totally like just bigoted content. These people will blow up to 1 million followers overnight.
What do you mean a dark niche? Do you mean like people being transphobic niche, or you mean the gym talk niche?
So this is like gym talk, and I'll put a target on my back with this one. So the gym talk niche is
drag them. I got you.
The gym talk niche. Look, okay, in the big scheme of things, most people are just neutral. There are a handful. There's some small percentage of gym content goers who will are actively involved in allyship. And but the thing is like there's this within the gym talk niche, there is this huge portion that is like actively transphobic, like actively goes out of their way. There's this one.
What type of stuff have you seen? Not any users' names, but like
there's this one
Ooh.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go.
All right, that's my fault.
There is this one creator specifically who her entire platform is just hate and bigotry, and she makes very derogatory jokes. It's very not funny at all. She has been called out
trans women, doesn't she?
Yes, absolutely. She jokes a type of humor that is very just honestly mortifying and puts lives at risk. It's not just hateful. It's not just bigoted. It literally puts lives at risk, and it radicalizes people who engage in this type of humor. And the platforms will not take her down. She's making money off of it. She's got a million views on every video, but it's not.
And how clever is it? It's what I've noticed about not gym talk per se, but these types of people who you know, resort to this type of humor. Like, in this humor to me is all in the same category. It's almost it takes about as much intelligence as like toilet humor. You know what I mean? A lot of times. And it feels kind of like toilet humor, like kind of thing. It's like it's not that intelligent, it's not that nuanced, it's not that layered. It's just like so like a baby could understand it, or like, you know, somebody with a very low intelligence could understand it. And, you know, and I think the thing that sucks about that is the person's not even evolving. It's
Yeah,
like how they change their content. It's like the same exact joke, like talking about trans women's bodies and what's between their legs. They're wearing a green shirt on Monday's post and a blue shirt on Tuesday's post, but it's the same joke, just told over and over again. And that's what thing is wild to me. That, I mean, I'm guessing that this person has other types of content that, or other types of material that they post about on their physical fitness account, but like it's probably the same joke over and over again, isn't it?
yep. And you know, to add to really, I'll try not to become too nuanced. I don't want to like kind of like lose focus. I mean, there is like some nuance here. So this is kind of what my experience in the gym and with, you know, being on Gym Talk is, and my audience is evolving out of that now. But the
Mhm.
bottom line is that like you'll have like a lot of creators that are like actually going out of their way to be transphobic and hateful, you know, espouse hateful ideology, which is actually a community guideline violation. Yet for some reason, some platforms
Mm.
look it. I'm not really sure why. It's kind of interesting in a non-funny way. At the same time, you will see a lot, the vast majority are neutral because they're probably sort of like bigoted to begin with. So a lot of people claim neutrality, but it shines through. However, this is the nuance here is that so you have like the hardcore bigots, then you have people who kind of just stay out of it and they're just neutral. But then those same people, when they're trying to take someone else down for some kind of other reason, like they want to cancel a creator or they want to cancel some other, you know, gym talker for some like one reason or another, maybe even a personal vendetta, they'll dogpile on them. And if they catch them saying something transphobic, even the people who are neutral or maybe even bigoted themselves will use that instance of transphobia to cancel them. They're tokenizing the trans community. They aren't really sending a message of love and support. They are already neutral or bigoted themselves. They're just tokenizing the trans community by
Mhm.
calling out using transphobia to cancel someone for their own personal vendetta. Really, it is a shit show, honestly. So you know, I
Surprise, surprise.
it's honestly you know, but the you know, this is the shit on Gym Talk. You know, it's just where it really takes place at, because there's a couple layers to it, and like yes, it is specifically targeting trans people, which is as fucking shitty as it gets, excuse my language.
Mhm.
But it's also like a further evolution of it's like a new layer of how they're already pre-existing hate. So it's like these people were already shaming women. These people were already shaming men. These people,
Exactly.
so it's just a new person to hate at the end of the day, which doesn't make it any better. It's like their hate is so widespread. You know, where do you know? There's so many different ways to attack this conversation. You know, so this is where it plays into the gynecomastia thing. So like, you know, this is where it's like, they're like, oh, they shame you for having gynecomastia because it like feminizes your chest, or they shame trans people because it's an example of diversity that they are not willing to open their hearts to. And what's at the bottom line of all of this is like they're trying so frantically to uphold this. You know, they're the benefactors of the patriarchy. So
Mhm. Mhm.
anything that contests this patriarchal you know, reality, like, oh, I get told this every day, like, oh, you don't even talk like a man, bro, or like, oh, like man up. And I'm like, okay, it's almost like this. A lot of people that, you know, consider themselves benefactors of the patriarchy, it's like a hive mind. And anything that deviates from that, they see that as a threat to the entire hive mind, because deep down inside they know that something like love might spread like cancer. And it's like so dark and dismal that they would be against that, but they might
Yeah.
not be identity or a belief system or an ideology. Outside of that, they don't have the ability to critical think for themselves. Sometimes, I mean, and I'm specifically referring to people who are bigoted, hardcore, to the point where they will harm someone's life with their words or their actions.
Mhm.
These are the people I'm specifically addressing.
So talk to me about the gym, like the gym talk community. Like how has the reaction been? Have you found other content creators that are like, great, this is great, let's collab. This is whether it's the kind of content that they're making or not. And I know the algorithm should eventually start sending people to you that are supportive of this content, not only as like consuming your content, but like, are there other creators that are doing something similar? Maybe not exactly what you are doing, because this is obviously sort of new for a lot of people, but like, are there other content creators that are being either supportive or interested in collaborating, or that you've discovered through the algorithm are doing something similar?
So, a little mixture of answers going on here. So like this is so like, my previous call out, I guess you could say, is how prominent, this kind of like complicit neutrality is, and how many people, how many followers I have lost because of this, how much opposition I have faced because of this. But the silver lining here is that there has been a huge amount and influx of support from individuals who maybe were on the fence or just undecided, or hadn't even, probably that conversation wasn't even part of their world. And they see something like this, and this is where, your rhetoric and the way you market yourself, the way you create your content, the way you format your content is so important, because there's so many good people out there. This is my experience at every single platform. It's like, so you do something that's like, a form of allyship or a form of body acceptance. And the first wave, I've said this again and again and again, the first wave is the bigotry. And it's so hateful, and it's so like jarring and harrowing that it makes you think that that's the whole world. But then after that,
Mhm.
with more support and more, human decency at the very least, which of course, like you said earlier, is just the fucking bar minimum, they come in and it outnumbers all that hate. So it's like the first wave is always bigotry, and then after that, the more humane individuals find your content, and they're like, hey, this is fucking cool. So I have even though the prior explanation that I gave might have sounded pessimistic, as a matter of fact, like, it's like, I would say the overwhelming majority is, they're like, hey, this is
Mhm.
good. This is
Mhm.
awesome that you're doing that, because these are the people that are not too far gone and are not lost in their own, egotistical worlds, where they're like, hey, if this guy is, supportive of this, and this guy is supportive of that, this feels like the right move,
They're
then
curious, yeah. But what
they're
about other content creators?
yeah, I mean, well, it depends. I don't the content creators. It's a mixed bag. A lot of the big creators unfollowed me as soon as I started supporting the trans community.
Okay.
They are not missed. Um,
Okay.
they, yeah, they will not be missed. But there's no one really in particular. Like I said, a lot of people just claim neutrality, and I've
Mhm.
had discussions and comments, but at the same time, hopefully more creators kind of get on board with this, at least kind of giving a voice to it. But a lot of people don't. They're afraid they're going to lose. They know what their audience is. They don't want to make any
Mhm.
sacrifice. I've lost tens of thousands of followers. When I make a post, every single post I make that's supportive of the trans community, I might lose 1,000 followers in 30 minutes.
I mean, I can't even think that you're the only human being who creates gym content that has dealt with gynecomastia.
Yeah.
And also can't think that you're the only guy whose body, you know, you want to, go to the gym to masculinize, get more muscles, however you want to call it. These guys are all, it's a form of body modification in a way, right? Obviously, people go to the gym for different reasons, but
Mhm.
going to the gym for some is a form of body modification, especially if they're like bodybuilders and like bulking up and doing all these different things. And so, there's got to be something about their body that they were like not necessarily that happy with, or wanted to change, or wanted to adjust. And some of those things are, I guess there's a lot of things that we view as socially as negative traits to a man's body that we automatically ascribe to being feminine or female traits,
Mhm.
not having any muscle, being too weak, having too much fat, having not enough, being too skinny, like all these things that are just supposed to be negative, that
Yeah.
are like, you know, on a man considered not manly and feminine and all these different things. And so And so this is the kind of content, like this is the kind of gender affirming care that these guys are paying a lot of money. The fitness industry is a huge industry, and they're paying a lot of money to engage in gender affirming care.
Yeah.
And so I just find it really ironic that and a shame that they're not able to recognize this as that, because it's not going to the gym is not the same thing as medically transitioning by any stretch of the imagination.
Mhm.
But the desire to do those things in the way that you can feel, if you're not able to access those things, can make you feel pretty bad. Could someone I wonder, for those of you who are watching, who may be watching this later, can you imagine if you are a person with extreme gynecomastia, cisgender, assigned male at birth person who doesn't want breast tissue, but you have it because you have gynecomastia? Could you imagine if your senator passed a law that said people like you are not allowed to go to the gym to exercise and work on that part of your body? Could you imagine? You know, I'm not speaking to you, of course, Dazzy. I'm speaking to the people.
I'm feeling,
uh,
you're good. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. You know, this is what you're saying is one of the most powerful points to be made with this conversation, is because you know what my experience as a cis man is, who has resonance with an audience of cis men who have gynecomastia. You know what it does to them? They lose hope. They have no hope. You know what the only hope they have is? The first hope is that
Right.
somebody like understands what they're going through. The second hope is that maybe they can get surgery one day. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they can get surgery one day. You know what would happen if first of all, 75% of the world's adolescent male population has some occurrence of gyno. 2 in 5 cases stick around. But anecdotally, it seems like half the people that get it never goes away. So imagine taking every single a 10-year-old to 18-year-old in the male, cis male in the entire world, taking about half of that audience, taking about half of that population, half of that demographic, and saying, hey, you got to keep this forever. We're making it illegal for you to go get this removed, and it's never going to go away, and it's actually only going to get bigger. These people are already men with gynecomastia. Cis men with gynecomastia have a 37% higher mortality rate than cis men without gynecomastia.
And why is that? From self-harm?
That is one
Or health aspects, other health aspects, but mental. I know self-harm can be a byproduct of mental health aspect, but like, why are this rate so high?
There is so yes, because of the fact, back to earlier in our conversation, the psychosocial factors, the consequences of men with gynecomastia, self-harm, unaliving ideation, crushed self-esteem, all that fun stuff, and not to be flippant, but rhetorically I mean that, self-harm, disordered eating, the whole shebang it's happening to men with gynecomastia. Now, as far as the statistic, 37% higher mortality rate of all men with gynecomastia is like for one reason or another. Some of it's some of it's not even understood. They just collected this through longitudinal studies.
I can't believe that they even have access to this. And not to cut you off, but like, this is what we mean when we say gender affirming care can be life saving.
Yeah.
For these men who have experiencing and have gynecomastia to have a 30% higher mortality rate, and that they are suffering psychosocially, and they are feeling a sense of despair, some of them. Not that not that gynecomastia means that that's what you will experience, but it's not the gynecomastia that's causing them to have this. In my opinion, it is the reaction of everybody else, and particularly the men around them, that are treating them in a way because they have the gynecomastia. And then in turn, they're having a lot of difficulty mentally, emotionally, socially. Then that influences their health, how they eat, whether or not they go to the gym. If you're feeling embarrassed about your body and you know that you're going to get made fun of by the people at the gym, then what gym are you going to go to? And so, like, this is a domino effect. And then this is what we mean as trans people when we say that gender affirming care is can be life saving. Then these people wouldn't necessarily have a higher mortality rate. Not saying that they need to just get surgery in order to and they should get rid of their gynecomastia surgically. But what I'm saying is allowing them to address it and feel better in their skin whether that means a medical approach, whether that means going to the gym, whether that means getting a certain type of clothing, whatever that means for them is going to allow them to address it and feel better in their skin. And then they will probably not have suicidal ideation, self-harm, all these other things that make them feel bad in their body. And so it's the same thing with trans people. It's important that we understand that when we say that gender affirming care for trans people can be life-saving and it's essential and it's being blocked. And it's when we say that trans people have a lopsided and an unbelievably high rate of self-harm and suicidal ideation, it's because of things like this, because of the way that are treated by the people around us and not being able to, not having an access to the things that we need to alleviate that pain. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make that connection.
I love it. I could listen to you all day about this. This is amazing. Thank you for this opportunity yet again. It's just so enlightening, you know, and as you know, as someone who has been called an ally, you know, I never set out on a mission to be an ally. I never called myself that. But you know, even discussing with you in this moment, you know, someone who, you know, to be called an ally, I find that as an individual, how much I've grown, you know, to go through this process. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now I have like a bunch of, now I have like, you know, all these different opinions and perspectives from trans people, trans folks, trans men in my DM saying, hey, like, can you make a video about this? Like, hey, can you talk about this? Like, hey, can you do this? And really that it's like, it's beautiful how much when I just talk about the lane that I'm in, when I just talk about gynecomastia, people are like, wait a second, this sounds exactly like what I'm going through. And so I want to stay focused on, let me tell you what the research literature states about the number one mainstay of therapy for men with gynecomastia, cis men with gynecomastia, is reassurance. That's it. Just reassurance. And as a matter of fact, on top of that, there are no psychological support systems for men with gynecomastia in the world. They have some kind of program that's like modeled after breast cancer, therapy. And there's no psychological support system for men with gynecomastia. That's what talking about it and normalizing it does. My content is, the whole purpose of it is to be a psychological support system for men with gyno. They don't have one, there's not one in existence. Except for maybe like, you know, like a therapy or some kind of support system modeled after breast cancer. They don't even have really something specific for you. Best mainstay of therapy for men with gynecomastia is reassurance. So whenever you make a video where you got gyno and you hit a flex, it reassures some guy that, guess what? He's not the only one out there with this. He's not the only one going through this, because it crushes men. So like I said, maybe there probably is another person from another community that's going to listen to these words when I say that men with gynecomastia, it crushes their hope. It crushes their self-esteem. And if I were to tell any of those men that they couldn't go get surgery, that would crush their last little bit of hope. And also, you know what the surgeon told me whenever I was talking to him? I'm not going to name drop the surgeon, but he said that whenever you're trying to you can go get gyno surgery any day of the week. You can just go get gyno surgery right now. So it's like, it's never going to be outlawed, even though it is gender affirming surgery, but we're hearing a totally.
But it actually is if the person identifies as trans. That's the part that is kind of messed up about this, is that there are certain surgeries and treatments and therapies and services that are provided that if you identify as trans, we're outlawing it in certain states. And when I talked about the legislation that had been put forth already, but if you don't identify as trans, then you can go ahead and get it. And it's the same exact, like, identical procedure, right? And so addressing gynecomastia on someone who was assigned male at birth, but felt like they wanted to have a flat chest for some reason, for whatever reason, and wanted to get this surgery, it would be listed as a gender affirming care for that person. And then since they're trans, it would not be, they would not be able to do it, you know? Anyway, go ahead.
And to add you're good. And to add a new layer to it, you know what the surgeons say whenever you're trying to get this covered by insurance. So a lot of guys, they want to go get it covered by insurance. They can't afford it. There's like social barriers around this thing. You know, they tell them, hey, you got to really play up the fact that it messes with your head. So as a cis man with gynecomastia, we're afforded that. We get all the loopholes. We get all the secrets in the shortcuts. They're like, hey, go in there and tell them it's making you really depressed, and they'll definitely cut it out. And then you have a trans man in the exact same situation, and they're like, oh, that's not even legal. You can't even
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
It's wild to me. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
And this is, yeah, Okay, so we know that some of the things that you've discovered and experienced with after as a result of doing this type of content, having seeing some people make shady comments and seeing not the best in everybody, but you've also seen some great things in terms of followers, and obviously discovered trans men commenting and sort of finding community with them in an unexpected way. What else have you learned about the different communities that you're connecting with beyond gyno and transness?
Yeah. We have these conversations with, the trans community. We have the conversations with men with gynecomastia, and we're seeing like that there's this like these overlapping circles where we have this common demographic of this
Mhm.
similarity in the most intimate aspect of our lives, and something that affects us deeply and profoundly. And so the goal here is to continue to normalize this and have these discussions so that an ever increasingly larger audience can understand that we have this in common and that in this way we are the same. Not everything else,
Mhm.
but in
It's
this
called
one,
intersectionality,
there,
folks.
yep, a little bit of intersection, perfect, a little bit of intersectionality for you. And so what else comes from this? There are people that are like completely lukewarm in regard. They're in their world. They're not coming across either of these things. Like, oh, gyno. Okay, I think I heard about that in biology or something. Oh, okay, trans people. Yeah, I've seen this one show one time, but it's not really in their world. Now we're bringing it to their world. And when they sit down and listen and they see the compassion, like, oh, okay, well, what is this at face value? Aside from my feelings, no, man, this is like supportive. This is like inherently supportive. And then
Mhm.
like, start to look inside themselves and be like, man, I have like, I have a hard time accepting myself too. Like, like I have body dysmorphia, and it's just someone who doesn't belong in either one or isn't a part of either one of these communities. And the more people that can realize there's this picture of compassion and love and acceptance and unity occurring, like, man, like, there's this part of my life where I feel really divided and I'm suffering silently. And there's this part of me that I don't even discuss. That's the goal here is humanity, and to sit there and shine a light on the fact that we all have so much in common, and whenever we support each other, we all benefit. That's the bottom line. Is that the bigoted individuals and the hateful ideologies, they want us to separate and divide us because they think that they'll maintain they'll uphold that structure in which they are benefactors. In most cases, it's patriarchal, but it's also deeper
Mhm.
than that. It doesn't always just boil down to that. At the same time, it boils down to, as bell hooks would say, that this dysfunctional society that we live in, where we live in a world, in a loveless society, a world of dysfunction. We're afraid to admit our own lovelessness, but we all want love more than anything. We all stand to benefit, and we can only achieve that by embracing diversity, embracing every single last person on the planet. You know why? Because we all want this and we all benefit from it. We all fucking win in the end if we do
I
this.
love that you're quoting bell hooks. I think that's fantastic. Folks, please check out bell hooks work, essential seminal work when addressing the patriarchy, racism, misogyny, women's lib, capitalism. Bell Hooks has got some news information for you. We're gonna go to the comments in a minute. I'd love to hear if there's anybody who has a question in any of the comments. If you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, I think we can get those Instagram comments. I think. Um, I hope so. Leave a message. Send a comment, and we'll try to address it. If you have a question, we will try to address it. I see some of the ones, all the people saying, hi, Peppermint, love you. That's really sweet of everybody. There's one question here. I just got here. What is gender affirming surgery? We'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. But basically, gender affirming care is any type of care that helps anybody feel more like themselves and better in their own gender. And so, Stacey Fit, my guest here, if you're just joining me, is talking about gynecomastia and the content that he creates as a fitness content creator, also over on TikTok, right? And lovely fitness content, if I say so myself. I'll share a couple of pictures, if that's okay, with
Yeah.
people to see some of the stuff that you've done. And I'm sorry, my mouse is acting a little up. There we go. And so this is some of the content that you have that talks about gyno. Gynecomastia, and it started, concealing the gynecomastia initially,
Mhm.
for those people that are just coming in, and then it moved to proudly displaying the gynecomastia there, and so now your content has evolved a bit, and your audience is evolving a bit. Your audience is evolving a bit, the conversations that you're having is evolving a bit, and so your content is evolving a bit. And can you talk a little bit about that? And I want to bring up one thing in particular, but go ahead, talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, and even the process of doing this type of content in and of itself has been quite a lesson for me. And but that lesson is that whenever you take a stance, you have a lot to lose, and we have so
Mm-hmm.
much to gain from just staying neutral. And a lot of people, they don't want to risk anything. They don't want to take any risk. You got people that are like, they'll have people that give. Try not to go. I'll try not to go too much on a tangent here. You got people that will say, oh, if you want to be like a creator, you have to take all these risks. And then they go and become a creator and they think they've taken all these risks. They haven't. They're still in their comfort zone. They don't want to take a single risk. They are afraid or have cognitive dissonance to speak out and support anybody. So they're just like, let me just like do this. Let me just like be neutral about all this crap, because all this stuff is
Mm-hmm.
happening around them. They're like, okay, like I'm in this, like I'm making gym content. And I've noticed that all the people I follow say transphobic things. Well, let me just keep my mouth shut. No one wants to take the lick. Or at the very least, they don't even care. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is whenever you do take a stance on something, you lose, you will alienate such a big part of your audience. And so as a gym content creator in this environment, you have to ask yourself, like, is this really the audience that I want to have resonance with? I don't have a single problem losing tens of thousands of followers. I've done it. I've lost 10, 20, 30. I don't even know how many. I've
Honey,
had,
let them stay in the rearview mirror, honey. You got a whole new
yeah.
community that's going to be super supportive of you, and so oh well.
It's not easy, and it's not easy. I learn every single day. I sit there and learn every single day. You know what you got to do as a creator? You got to sit there and listen and learn, because even as I'm transitioning, interesting word choice there.
Ba-dum-bum.
As I'm transitioning, into a new side of TikTok, Instagram, social media in general. It's like I see that there's still so much for me to learn. There's still, and so people are kind, they're educated you, like, hey, like, look, I just want to let you know, like, you said this the wrong way. Like, I just want to let you know that. And I'll be like, look, I'm new here. I'm a good listener.
Mhm.
Educate me today, and thank you. And that has become my quality of mine, is please correct me, and
Great.
please correct me, and thank you for that. And
And
yeah.
so the content that you made has started to change a bit, and I noticed that you did a collaboration with a company
Mhm.
that allows you to create content and also share. It's like, it seems like the perfect piece of content and product that you were able to promote, that allows you to share the content that you've been talking about, connect with the trans mask community, and inform people about a thing. And so can you tell us a little bit about it? I'm going to post a picture of it as you talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for them, queer and trans owned and operated company. And so, I have gynecomastia. I've got grade 2B gynecomastia, smack dab in the middle. I got grade 1 through 4. And, meeting you and starting to have conversations with you was such an integral part in all of this. So thank you so much. And again, I can't thank you enough for letting me be here, this
Mhm.
opportunity. And just have that conversation like we had. It's like, like can you put me on? Like, put me on, like, give me what I need to know, because because we recommend compression shirts. So why would I not recommend a binder? Because is it not for the same thing? So I reached out to for them. They reached back with me. They were like, hey, we've looked at your content. We've analyzed the comments. We've listened to discussions. We kind of did like a little bit of a cred check on you, and kind of reached out to some other creators, kind of see what they thought about you. We kind of
Edit
brought
you.
and they kind of came back around. They're like, we kind of like bounced around. We made sure we knew what was really going on, and we think that multiple communities benefit from this. So we want to send you a binder. So I was like, thank you. So give them my shipping address, all this stuff. I get this binder, and I'm looking at it and I unbox it, and it's this beautiful box. I do this unboxing. I'm on live at the time, actually. And I look at this, they have this logo, and it says "for them," and I start to read it, and it's like, "For them, believes in a world." I'll start crying right now. It's free from gender oppression. Broke down into tears. I was like, Jesus, it was like, in that moment, having that in my hand, and to know how many people fought this war, how many people stood on the front line, like, to read something like that. For them, believes in a world free of gender oppression, celebrating diversity, where everyone can be free. It's like, how many lives we have lost to hear that message. How many, like, it's like literally a war. Like how many people battled. Thinking like civil rights in any single way, shape, or form. Like every single life matters, and it's so sad to imagine, but it's true that so many people, their lives have built this mountain of this product right here. For them, believes in a world free of gender oppression. Those few little words, gender oppression. Think about all the pain in the world, just because people refuse to step down. We will not fucking step down and let the world be like, no, you can't do this. This is the box we want to push you in. We've already seen that box is fucked up. We already saw that box is broken. The world's trying to put us all in a box. We already know that box is wicked. We already know that box is made of a sick material. We're tired of it. We're ready to just be who we are. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna put some breath in. I'm gonna put some breath in and out of my lungs. I'm gonna put my feet on some grass, and I'm gonna sit there and catch the shade under this tree today on this beautiful day. And you're not gonna tell me who the fuck I am. You're not gonna tell me what I'm here for. You're not gonna tell me shit, because you're trying to compartmentalize me into a situation that makes you happy. And you know what makes you happy? A bunch of fucking money in your pocket while you destroy the fucking planet. We don't trust the world anymore.
Watch the language a little bit, though.
I get a little hyped up.
I appreciate it. I do.
All right, language check. Thank you. I get passionate. I get passionate with it. I am so.
So well, I think this is great, and perhaps the beginning of a really good relationship for you with this and other companies. And I just love the fact that somebody who's cis and hetero is promoting a queer and trans run and owned company that has focused on and has served trans masc folks, which now will help. It's just great that something that was initially intended to save trans masc folks from stress and strife and all these different things is also helpful for cis folks. And we can see that those two things come together. We have a couple of comments from the chat. I want to make sure that we acknowledge them. One's looks like it's from YouTube. And BBI, I can't even say BBI and BBI, baby and BBY, BBI and BBY says, thanks for addressing this topic. Woog 90s, Woog, is that like a Woogie, like from Star Wars? 96 says, is there any correlation between high gym usage and gyno? Like, is it more prevalent in the gym world? You want to address that?
There is a little bit, there is an interesting correlation here. So let's say you have the adolescent male population of the world, and up to 75% of these, adolescent males have some occurrence of gyno. So sometimes what happens is, you might have like a 14 or a 15-year-old, he goes to the gym, and he's it's kind of like in the cards for him to get gyno anyway, and he'll have gyno occur, and it's growing anyways. And so it's one of those things where it looks like it's the causation, but there's really no correlation, because this is coming from a gynosurgeon. He told me that the only two scientifically proven ways that can really increase your likelihood of having gynecomastia go away is to work out, get in the gym, because it'll help correct that imbalance, and also diet. If you're a teenager, you do not need to go on any kind of crash diet, but at the same time, you don't want to be eating McDonald's 7 days a week. So find a happy medium, especially for the younger people out there. You're a teenager, you're going to have some pizza and beef jerky, you're going to have some ice cream, but you can't sit down and be sedentary and live on it every single day. Now you can if you want, but it's just you can if you want, but if you want your gyno to go away, then you need to at least have a reasonably clean diet, especially for the teenagers out there. Your parents cooking is good enough. But don't drink 2 liter of Pepsi every single day. And so there's often this, a lot of people out there, they're like, hey, I started going to the gym and I got gyno. And I'm like, hey, that is misinformation. That's not going to happen. Now, to add a little bit of complication to it, lifestyle factors. Now, say you're going to the gym and you do a dirty bulk. This is kind of like eating everything in sight while lifting weights to give your body enough energy to put on a bunch of muscle, and you put on some fat too. This is whenever you can get gynecomastia. So essentially the answer would be also in this instance, yes. You can get gynecomastia because of the excess adipose tissue, which increases the likelihood that gyno can occur. So sometimes it's misinformation, sometimes there's no correlation, and sometimes yes, depending on the exact context.
Well, there's so much to learn when we actually look into our bodies, our health, our minds, and how it all works together. And we discover, as you said, we have so much more in common than we have differences. I'm sure that somebody trying to lift weights who's got some breast tissue that they're feeling some type of way about in the middle of so-and-so and somewhere probably wasn't thinking that they have a lot in common with a trans masked person from another city or another part of the world even. So I'm really grateful that you've been able to create this content, and I think it's great, the things that you do. More power to you. I think it's awesome. And I'm really grateful that we were able to sit and talk about this. And going back to the comments real quick, everybody in the comments, thank you so much. And by the way, it looks like Woogie is that person's nickname. Thank you so much. And somebody says, Walker of the Wild says, I can't believe I caught alive. You can't believe you caught alive. Okay. Well, they're always happening. And somebody is also asking, will we save this stream? Yes, we're going to save the stream and also clip it down so that you all can see some of this content across our channels over the next few days. Is there any parting message that you want to send to people as we get ready to wrap the broadcast?
Nothing in particular. I just think that, this has been such an awesome opportunity. And, I think that, the more visibility conversations like this get, the better for all of us. But at the end of the day, it's just like sometimes just a message that isn't hateful seems to be enough, even though, to use your words, it is basically the bare minimum. It should be the bare minimum. It is at par. But it goes to show you how powerful it is just to be kind of even decent. You don't have to go out and do everything in the world. You don't have to go out there and, do 1,000,000% of all the work. But even if it's just, just human decency is what this is all about. It's, some people kind of, it's so easy to just be decent.
It really is. And for those of you, again, those who are worried about missing the live, don't worry. We're going to be posting more of this video you'll be able to find it on my YouTube, and it'll, for a while, I'll leave it up for a little while, and then there's going to be more content on my Patreon. And I'm going to invite you to stay on with me, Stacey Fit, for a few minutes, if that's cool, and we'll have the extra content. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining. You can check out Stacey Fit. Go ahead and look at the bottom. His handles are there for his social media. You can give him a follow. Yeah, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. And everyone, thank you so much for watching the show. And don't worry, there will be more pep talks about other topics and situations and things in life. And so if you're interested in any of that, message me. If you have a request about something that you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'll do my best to cover it. In the meantime, thank you so much. Stacey Fit, thank you so much. And everybody, I'll talk to you soon. Stacey Fit, stay right there. Bye, y'all.